Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast, where I am on a mission to help you get the Zettelkasten of your dreams on your work table beside you. Well, yesterday I did a video with a big tirade on how vital it is to use your own words in capturing an idea from a book, and that it's never good enough to simply quote the author, because if you just quote the author, you can't be certain that you've understood it. Plus, you miss the opportunity to engage your full mind, because your subconscious mind loves mysteries. And if you're proposing questions like, how can I say this in my own words? You're bringing your whole mind to the task. And so that makes the whole experience more energizing. Well, no sooner did I pontificate on that topic than, guess what? I was immediately tested this morning when I was working on still my homework for my minimalist class. Guess what? I got face to face with the necessity to put a rather mysterious quote into my own words. So I've got it set up for you. So come on over to the down-facing camera. Well, I didn't eat my own words, but I've got some sugar on them in case I have to in the future. So come on over and take a look. Okay, as many of you know, if you've been following along with my podcast, I have been doing a little series called The Minimalist Zettelkasten, in which I present some simple methods to make a fully complete Zettelkasten with the simplest number of steps possible. And I do this by collapsing a lot of the choices, making the choices for the participants so that they don't have to analyze a whole bunch of decisions at a time when they're not really prepared, because they don't know the consequences of those decisions. The result of that is that many times users get paralyzed and don't get their Zettelkasten off the ground because they can't figure out which choices is the appropriate one. So this series is designed to make everything quite simple by taking a lot of those choices away. Well, one of the challenges that I left my students with was to choose 3 books in their potential future reading plan as widely spaced in subject matter as they foresee themselves reading in the near future. So I, of course, am doing the homework as well, because how can I demonstrate to my followers what they're supposed to do with the bib cards and the main cards that they make in this assignment if I can't show you mine and show you how, from mine, how I decide what to do? Well, this is my 3rd book, The Timeless Way of Building by Christopher Alexander. This book was recommended to me by Julianne Scherer, and she has some very eclectic reading taste. This book is on architecture, but it's a rather amazing book in the way the book itself is architected, and it has an awful lot to say about really anything that is constructed in a manner that has a set structure. So I'm game. I'm ready to read it. So I made my bib card, as I'm supposed to do, and the challenge came in rather quickly. This book is quite interesting in that it is very deliberately architected itself. In the little preface here, the author suggests that you actually go through the entire book just reading the italicized sections of each chapter and pretty much turning the pages as fast as you can so that you'll get an idea of the whole of the book. And then his last sentence here is so amazing. He says, then if you want to go into detail, you will know where to go, but always in the context of the whole. So I thought that was a rather interesting assignment. I didn't get it completed, however, because I was immediately sidetracked by something else I noticed. He has a traditional table of contents with chapter title and page number, etc., with some divisions, but he turns right around and has a detailed table of contents where he gives full sentences. This intrigued me so much because these felt a lot like the taglines that I suggest that you put at the top of your main cards, which are a complete sentence that carries a meaning. And here he's doing that for his table of contents. So I ended up spending so much time reading this detailed table of contents that I didn't get to the part where I was supposed to read the book through from the italicized words. That will have to come next. But it did occur to me that each of these headers in his detailed table of contents would in and of themselves make very excellent main cards, and probably would be the very good main cards to use for the head of the chapter. Well, I thought that was such a great idea that I decided to start with my first main card. Well, here's my bib card. Here I noted what he said in the introduction, which I went over with you. And now here I am with this first concept. And it's a rather interesting one. I'm going to come in closer so that you can see what I mean. I'm dealing with this paragraph here, which is repeated over here. Now I'm going to bring you in closer so that you can see what we're talking about here. Okay, so it starts out with this sentence: a building or a town will only be alive to the extent that it is governed by the timeless way. So I decided to read on to find out what the timeless way was before I made my bib note, and I found out, oh, it's very simple. Here's the definition of a timeless way. It is a process which brings order out of nothing but ourselves. It cannot be attained, but it will happen of its own accord if we will only let it. Oh my gosh. Here I am faced with exactly the kind of a situation that I railed on about endlessly, about how you must not quote the author, you must put it in your own words. So I said yesterday that if you want to capture the quote, that it's just fine to do that on your bib card, but when you go to make your main card, make sure you put it in your own words. But my golly, how are you going to put something in your own words which is so hard to comprehend, and when you have so little to go on to comprehend it, especially since the instructions that I'm trying to follow from the author are to just read these headers, and page by page throughout the book, just read these italicized marks. As he says, turning the pages just about as fast as you can to get through the book. Just again, reading the headers and then the italicized portions. So this is my first main card. It's rather interesting because I believe that the author here is intending to be enigmatic. I read a little more, and he's not going to define this for me. He's enjoying the ambiguity of this statement. He's enjoying throwing out a statement that at this moment we have no answer for. So what do you do with that when you've sworn that you're not going to simply put a quote into your main card? That was my challenge, especially after having gone on at such length about it yesterday. I had to meet this challenge. Here's what I came up with. And what I realized was that the only thing I could do with this was to make my best guess at what this means and be comfortable with the possibility that I'm far afield from what the author really intended. But I've got this fascinating thing going on now, which is like the very way that you engage your subconscious mind is to give it a problem. So I have an open question, a problem that I'm going to have to bring to every single page of this book as I read it. What kind of process brings order out of nothing but ourselves? What is that process? And how can there be a process that can't be attained, but it will happen of its own accord? We are so much more used to processes that, well, if we let them happen of their own accord, they're not going to go anywhere at all, are they? If we want them to get somewhere, they will have to be attained. And he's telling us that no, it can't be attained. It can only happen on its own. And it happens out of us being ourselves. So I'm presented here with a grand mystery, and it's my duty to put this into my own words. So I took a stab at it, and I've got the page number designated, and I'm absolutely ready and willing to be dead wrong about what it means. But this is what I've come up with. My best guess is that the timeless way is going to turn out to be a manner in which organization arises out of our ordinary ways of doing things. And in that vein, I pictured a path through the woods that comes about by people going through the woods. The more people that go through the woods, the clearer the path will be, the wider the path will be, the more firmly delineated as a path it will be. That is our ordinary way of doing things, going through the woods, and an organized path would arise out of that way of doing things. That's my hunch. That's what I'm going to go on as my working guess. And then I've gone on to express this idea that it cannot be sought after, but tends to arise naturally if we don't block it in some way. So I guess a path through the woods wouldn't be sought after, because unless you're the person that's first person going through the woods, well, if you were, you couldn't seek after it because you don't know what it is. You just have to go about your best way. And if you're the umpteenth person following the path, well, you're just following it. So you can't, it really isn't something that you can strive for unless you want to send out a survey team. Instead, you let it arise naturally in some way. That is my working guess for what this means. And now, in this instance, I believe the author was being intentionally enigmatic. But there are many times in many books where the enigma is our own difficulty in understanding. Now I have to say, how does that work then? Are we not then, just as much as when we're trying to solve an enigma, are we not better off to throw out an answer and then see if the surrounding text proves or disproves what we have come to guess that the meaning might be? How much more active to do that kind of guessing rather than to simply stew in our chairs and say, I don't get it. Now, in this case, it's my belief that the author was being intentionally enigmatic, in part because I think he wants us to have this thinking, imagining mind trying to say, how is that possible? Tell me, how can that be brought about? So that we will read more actively and more engaged with the reading as we go about it. But it does make me realize that this might also be a very effective tool when we're faced with a sentence in a book that was not trying to be enigmatic, but succeeded quite well in being enigmatic for us at this moment in our maturity and our understanding of the subject matter. And in that case, may it not also be a good idea to make a guess at what we think the author is saying and then read on and constantly test, did I get it? Did I get it? Did I understand it? And that would, again, keep our entire brain flowed into the subject matter at a time when we're faced with something that we really don't get at all. I know sometimes I have a tendency to, when I read something that I don't understand, I stop and I reread it. If the third reading doesn't give it to me, I'm ready to start stewing. What's the matter? This doesn't make sense. But it doesn't really help to take that type of a reaction. How much better to treat it as a mystery and say, okay, I'm going to figure this out. Maybe the author did not intend for me to know it from what has been presented previously. Maybe I need to follow with what is about to become presented before I will understand fully what is being said. So I think it's rather amazing that from one day to the next, I immediately got challenged with the very thing I put down as a rule the day before. So I hope you enjoyed that factor, and I hope you enjoyed the idea of what do you do when you can't make sense out of something, but you really feel that it ought to be a note in your system. Hope you enjoyed that. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.